Yeah, so we've been presenting European data post-COVID for many years now, and the story has evolved over time, but there seems to be some common themes that ring true even in 2025. So the first thing is no market is the same, and the second thing is no market class is the same. So as I presented today, we are still seeing big variances in performance across Europe. So year to date, if we look at the hotspots like Greece, Italy, Spain, you will know yourself from the cost of traveling to those countries that ADR growth continues to excite and surprise the market for sure. But a lot of that is underpinned by luxury hotels, and therefore there are high-end travelers that do not have any resistance to price essentially and are willing to pay the higher prices that are in those markets. And it tends to be more the luxury segment. It tends to be resort hotels as well. So those high prices are expected in those markets. So we're definitely seeing that on one side. Kind of in the middle, I would say Central and Eastern Europe are performing in a different way in that they never really caught up with pre-COVID years in terms of occupancy. Now they have an opportunity. Availability and affordability is enabling them to grow their occupancy, which is giving them confidence to grow rates. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have the UK. So I talked a lot about the UK today in my presentation, and the UK has been, given a very poor hand. They've had a lot of external pressures in terms of rising costs of hotels, of how they do their business, NIC contributions, the rising costs of business rates, etc. All have impacted the bottom line, but have also impacted the corporate traveller, so the SME in particular, and even the consumer, so the leisure consumer that was very willing to go away for a weekend and spend in the UK is probably a little bit more reticent now. And the UK hotels have definitely felt the impact in 2025. Yeah, so we get asked that question a lot. Does ADR have a ceiling? Depends on the market, if it has a ceiling. As I said, that a market like Greece doesn't seem to have a ceiling right now. But again, there's lots of supply and demand dynamics that roll into that and make that the case. But definitely when we compare luxury hotels to economy hotels, there has been a growth that is very different across the two, and this is across Europe, not just in the UK. So luxury hotels have continued to benefit from a higher growth of rate, whereas the economy hotels have really had to stall their rate. And in fact, in many cases, rate has come back. Now, rate often stimulates demand. And I mentioned actually Ryanair today in my presentation because interestingly, Ryanair in the first half of this year saw an increase in passenger traffic of 9%, whereas their average fare declined by 10%. And I thought that kind of mirrored what we're seeing in the hotel industry. We have to stimulate demand in some way. It's rate at the end of the day. But yeah, going back to the luxury hotels, because that's probably always what people want to hear about, is luxury hotels have had this phenomenal growth since 2019, since they were opened after the COVID, 2020 I suppose. And we have tracked the number of hotels that now have an average rate of $1,000 or more across the globe. And as of the end of 2024, that was 499 hotels to be exact. That has grown by 200% from pre-COVID years. It's phenomenal. But additionally, more of those hotels with $1,000 or more average rate are in Europe than they are in the US, which is really, really interesting. And again, supports all of the data that we're seeing, where we're seeing the Greek markets, south of France, etc., driving rate. It is because of those luxury hotels. I think for independent hotels specifically, it's always been challenging, right? Since the 80s, it's been challenging, from a distribution perspective, from access to technology. They've always been challenged by the status quo and what the industry is doing and how they can't keep up. But they have a very, very special place in the industry. And I think that any independent hotel can stand on its own 2 feet, but really needs to make an experience instead of just a stay. So number one, I think it is about the experience. Number two is ensure that their distribution is varied, to ensure that not only are they getting a good rate, but moreover they're getting a diverse population coming into their hotels. And I think third thing is, exploring new customer segments, I should say. And that customer segment, it could range from the corporate traveller staying one night, maybe that they don't have today, but it could also be the corporate traveller that needs to stay 4 weeks or 6 weeks for that longer stay. What can you do in your property to make that special? That might be one room and attract maybe a new or expand a consumer segment that they already have.